Blog Talk Radio.
Agreeing when you really disagree? At counterracism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open-source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today.
Context of White Supremacy. Gus T Renegade and Justice in for another program. We had some technical difficulties. All right. We're going to try this again. I've been disconnected repeatedly, attempting to call in for the program. Hopefully, things will be clean now. Thank you for your patience. If it was my negligence, I would own up to that. But this is very strange beginning to broadcast number 301, the Context of White Supremacy. Thank you all for tuning into the program. We'll be broadcasting every day from here to the end of the month. Please invest. We're fundraising, invest, and let people know about the program. Sharing links to the broadcast on Facebook, Twitter, any of the social networking sites, anywhere where you can post. That would be super helpful. It does have an impact. So share the program if you find it to be of constructive value, and you shouldn't be listening if you don't think it's constructive. I've said that repeatedly. We have way too many problems to be wasting time with folks who are not presenting information of value. I said our guest for today's program, and today would be Monday, January the 24th, 2011. So they tell me. Our guest for today's program, this was a recommendation from one of our previous guests. He had a lot of good things to say about the book and recommended that I check it out. I was glad I was able to find information about the book online, contacted the author. He was gracious enough to send me a book. In addition, he was extremely patient. This broadcast, we were supposed to make this happen some time ago, but things just got, Context of White Supremacy, things got a little confused, but he hung in and we were able to make the program happen. Our guest for this evening's program received his medical degree from Michigan State, his ophthalmology surgical subspecialty training from Harvard University. In addition to being a standout surgeon and scholar, our guest was an all-American track star at Cornell University. He co-captained the Cornell Track and Field Team. He was Cornell University's 1978 Athlete of the Year and a Cornell University Athletic Hall of Fame inductee. All of those accolades, and on top of all that, he is the author of Nigger for Life. Our guest for this evening's broadcast of the C.O.W.S, Dr. Neal Hall. Dr. Hall, are you with us, sir?
Yes, I am. Thank you very much for having me.
Outstanding. Thank you for sharing some of your time and being patient with us, tech issues aside. For folks who have not read your book or visited your website, and the website is linked right here at Blog Talk Radio. If you click Dr. Hall's name, it'll take you to the website. For those who are not at Blog Talk, the address is surgeon-poet.com. Again, it is surgeon-poet.com. But for folks who...
I'm sorry, it's all one word. It's all one word, Surgeon Poet.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
It should be.
Okay. I don't know. I put in the dash and it works, so I guess you can do it all one word, and you should get there as well.
Okay.
So surgeonpoet.com. Forget the dash. There you go. Listen to the author. He's a Harvard grad. You don't want to listen to Gus.
No.
But for folks, who haven't read the book, haven't been to the website, could you tell them a little bit more about who you are and why you wrote this book?
Well, you did a very good job explaining who I am. Let me just start off by saying it's a book of poems. I started writing poems when I was in high school, and as I progressed on through high school and college, I just continued to do that off and on. But it climaxed in the sense that what I came to understand in sort of very shocking way later in life, that no matter what you do or you accomplish, skin color comes into play. And on balance, it does so to your disadvantage and exploitation. And though some of us may find isolated exceptions to this rule, it is a rule nonetheless for the majority of us and for the majority of our black experience, whether you want to believe it or not, or whether you realize it or not. And surely there's a book in all that. Surely there's a book in all of us when we truly come to this realization. So this is my book with respect to that realization. Just trying to come to grips with it, believing most of my life that, and being taught that education was the key. Nothing's totally promised to you, but education is the key, and to go and get a good education, try to live reasonably. I'm not an angel of anything of that nature, but coming to the painful reality that no matter what you do, in unspoken America, race is the one thing on which you are first judged, by which you're first measured, first against which your life and accomplishments are metered, diminished value, dignity, equality, and justice. And all these things have everything to do with accessing choice, opportunity, and power and freedoms in America. And skin color still remains an obstacle for us. And no amount of civil rights laws or voting rights, no greater amount of education on either side of the racial divide is going to overcome the lingering effects and color-coded advantages and disadvantages of discrimination. And so this book was sort of my coming to, painfully coming to that realization.
Wow. Okay. Before we get started with the book, and hopefully Dr. Hall, he will share a few poems as we go. I thought I sent you an email earlier, but it's still in my box as a draft, so I guess you didn't get it. I have requested that Dr. Hall share 5 poems with us, and I said, you can pick. Oh, okay, but I updated it. I picked 2 of the 5. I was hoping I could pick 2, and the 2 that I wanted the 2 that I selected, one of them, collateral benefits. That was one.
Okay. Mm-hmm.
And the other, I'm a good little Negro.
Okay, I think I have my book here. Yeah. Let's see.
Oh, you don't have to do it right now. I'm just, just,
I'm ready.
Okay, yeah, I knew you would be. Actually, I was thinking it would be great as we ask questions. The way that your poetry is written, you could even, give some of the responses with a poem if you like. So just tossing it out there. But yeah, you don't feel compelled right now. Before we hop into the book, though, this program, Context of White Supremacy, I have unfortunately concluded that we are in a global system of racism, white supremacy. I use those 2 terms interchangeably, and I use the exact same definition for both terms. That definition is as follows: a global system of people who classify themselves as white and are dedicated to abusing and or subjugating everyone in the known universe whom they classify as not white. Do you believe that such a system exists, and do you think that definition is accurate?
I think such a system exists, but I think there's a system of human indignities that is above that of just color. I think it's what one man will do to another man, irrespective of his color, in order to find a leg up. And if we can find an exploitable difference in order to give us a socio-economic advantage, we will do that. And I think man has been doing that since the beginning of time. I don't think it's just restricted to white men, although white men have done that in many, many parts of the world, including America. But you'll find that the Chinese have done it to Chinese, and Irish Catholics to Irish Protestants. Wherever we can find or create a distinguishing mark or symbol, we will use that to exploit and to advance ourselves beyond our fellow man. That is what I think is global. I think some of these other things are more regional.
Okay. Do you think right now, January 2011, that the people on the planet who have the most power to do harm are white people collectively?
I think white people have done a lot collectively throughout the world. But again, I don't want to. I think when you look on a global standpoint, I would just think it's more what man will do to man, and trust me, white men have done more than their share with respect to that throughout the world, and in particularly in the United States.
Okay. My co-host is also with us. Justice, if you have some questions that you would like to ask Dr. Hall about his book, and again, the website that you can go to get more information about Dr. Hall, check out his book, surgeonpoet.com, all one word, surgeonpoet.com. But Justice, if you have some questions for Dr. Hall, your line should be open. Please go right ahead. Okay. Your line should be open now. Please feel free, Justice. Go right ahead.
Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. Hello, Dr. Hall. And
hello, Justice. How are you?
Doing great. How and why did you become a poet?
I don't know. I mean, it's like saying... I think it's something that was always in me. I always loved words. Ever since I was a kid, certain songs, I loved the words and the lyrics and songs and what they meant, and so it always represented something for me, and I just continued to write. I know growing up, we didn't not talk that much at home, or I didn't talk that much at home, or we didn't express our feelings that much, so words provided me that opportunity to express my inner feelings. Much of what I used to write early on, I kept to myself and did not share it, but it was sort of my way of just expressing my feelings. I love words, absolutely love words, and they're powerful. They can be very, very powerful. For good and bad, unfortunately.
What do you enjoy about being a poet?
I think creating, taking an idea, a flash of an idea, or a pain that you may feel, or some beauty that you may see, and being able to take that, whatever it is, and with the brush of words, paint on the canvas of a page, a picture with words that can convey your feelings, and hopefully with some measure of impact, not just for yourself and within yourself, but your fellow man as well. So it's almost like being a painter and stepping back after getting that inspiration and seeing the portrait of words with its ideas and thoughts on the canvas of a page.
What does a person have to do to be a poet?
Well, I think what has helped me the most is to sit and wait for the inspiration. Sometimes when you try too hard, it can be very contrived, it can be forced, but sit and wait to hear it speak to you, and always be prepared to write it down, to get ready to write it down and paint with the words. So to me, the most important thing is just sitting and waiting patiently for that inspiration. So I always have paper and pen always near me, everywhere. My car, my bed, always ready to write, waiting for that flash.
The poem, Dr. Nigger, what does that poem say?
It's interesting you picked
about
that.
Racism, white supremacy.
Well, I try to take that from the perspective of a physician, which I am, and show the hypocrisy of racism, and this willing to accept certain things in order to have one's life saved, but to do it in a way in which I'm not, or that person, the person being white, is not tainted by my color. Probably, if you don't mind, it would probably be a good time, an opportunity to read that, if you don't mind. Hello?
Yes. The poem,
Yes.
Dr. Nigger, what
Yes.
does that poem say about racism, white supremacy?
I think it's...
I see. Okay, so you want me to read the poem?
Oh, I will read it for you if you don't mind.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
Okay. The title of the poem is, and it's actually one of the favorite poems of most people who read the book, so I thought that was very interesting that you talked about it. The name of the poem is Dr. Nigger. Dr. Nigger, can you cure me without touching me with nigger hands? Can you save my life without changing my life? Can you dance soft shoe while humming those negro tunes when my white life codes blue? Can you reach inside yourself beyond the shit we put in you, past painful moments we put in you, past despair and hopelessness we put in you, and find that old black magic in you to save my life without changing all the shit we put in you? Dr. Nigger, can you breathe in me air free of nigger, from a nigger not free to breathe in free air? Can you stay on the colored side of the colored line and reach across without touching me with nigger hands to restart my blue heart without changing my cold heart? Can you reach past the life we've taken from you to save my life and not let white life pass me by? Dr. Nigger, save my life without taking my life. Cure me without touching me with nigger hands. Dance soft shoe while humming negro tunes while you save my life without changing my life when my white life codes blue.
Woo!
Hello?
I don't have any more questions at this time.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you, Justin.
Wow. Context of White Supremacy. Wow. How do you follow that? I guess number one, before I even get to that poem, and we should have four others. Before I get to that poem, I want to rewind. I want to just read some of these accolades again, so people don't, just skim over this and think we just have any old person on the program today. Dr. Neal Hall. Matter of fact, if you could give the credentials, it would sound better coming from you. Could you give your credentials one more time so they know how you became an ophthalmology surgical specialist?
Well, I will do that, but just let me say that I'm just Neal Hall, and I think what's really nice about it is just getting to that point that's really who I am. Those other things are maybe at one time what I thought I was or should be, and I'm not belittling those or anything like that, and I'm very proud of that. But I think the most important thing that I'm proud of is that what I am today, and I can be that despite my resume. Having said that, I went to Cornell University, and there I was recruited for football there. I played in high school. I could not afford to go to college, so I used football in high school in order to get an education. And Cornell recruited me, played football, did that for 4 years. I was a walk-on for track, and our track team was very well, and I ended up being captain of the track team. Very, very good track team. I had a chance to travel across the country, had a chance to go to Europe and run. Went on from there, I went on to medical school at Michigan State University, and from there I decided I wanted to be an ophthalmologist, which is a medical and surgical eye physician, and I did so at Harvard University.
Wow. And again, 1978 Athlete of the Year at Cornell University, inducted into the Athletic Hall of Fame at Cornell University. Were you experiencing racism while you were, going through getting all of your education? Were you experiencing this mistreatment even then?
I think in high school and college, I was naive and did not see it. That's one. Two, I was in an arena where you were very much accepted and very much welcome because you offered something. And part of it was entertainment. Part of it was promoting the school and its name through your various athletic activities. So people liked that. So there may have been some things that I missed because I was sort of wrapped up in the revelry of the sports and those kinds of things. I started sensing some things in medical school, but not that much. Again, it could have been there, but I wasn't looking for it. I didn't know how to see it. Once I did my residency at Harvard, there were a number of times where patients had requested the nurses that they prefer not to be seen by a black physician. And I just figured that par for the course, you may run into a patient here or two that will do that. I can remember leaving the Pops Theater in Boston, where Harvard is, and I just left a concert, and I was standing there ready to cross the street, and a car drove by with 4 white youth in the car, and they yelled out "nigger" and spit as they drove by. And I just froze. I absolutely froze. I didn't know what to say, what to do. Whammy. Excuse me?
Oh, I'm sorry. I was listening. Please continue.
Yeah, I didn't know what to say or what to do. But that was probably, up to that date, the most shocking thing that I had experienced. But again, you go on with your medical training. It really hit me when, after I finished all my education, and I tried to start a practice, i.e. a economic entity, which competes with other economic entities. Because really, racism and white supremacy, to me, it's not, there is this notion of white supremacy, but the bigger notion is that it's about economics. And so when you started to be able to compete effectively for economics, then any this exploitable distinction one can use to keep you from competing effectively for dollars, individuals will use. So I began to experience that by other doctors, even within ophthalmology department, that did not necessarily want me to be on staff, even though I was trained far beyond their training. I tried to set up a practice in a predominantly white area, not because I wanted to be white area, but this is the area that I wanted to practice, good real estate, things like that. And I remember one of the properties I was interested in purchasing, I spoke with the seller, and I finally was able to get a banker to finance me. The banker came with me to the house, and the seller said to my face that he had an obligation to the community not to sell to me, and he did not sell to me.
Double whammy.
Double whammy. There's been times when, in practice, when I was practicing, and I would come out of surgery, I would be told to go and mop OR number 3, because any black man in surgical scrubs is an orderly until proven otherwise. Cleveland Clinic, I was pulled by my collar out of surgery, the surgical suite, as I was about to walk in, by a nurse who just saw, again, a black man going somewhere where she thought he should not be, and I'm going in to assist in surgery. So these things became much more evident to me later in life, and I think that's the thing that was most shocking, which made me just have to make notes about it, which ultimately led to the book.
Context of White Supremacy. I'm still shocked. Have you got responses from white people and or black people that have sounded something like, "Oh my gosh, you just sound like an angry black man. You're bitter. I can't believe that you're just looking for racism and playing the race card thing. It's 2011. We've got, President Obama in the White House. Has anyone responded to your work in that manner? And if so, how do you counter that?
I would say that number has been very, very, very small with respect to that. And matter of fact, there have been a number of whites who have said that I see things different now. Not only that do I see things different now, but now I may have seen my role in it, which really was, it really blew me away. And there have been far more whites who have said that than what you have just said. There have been a number of blacks who have said that. But my response to the angry black male thing is that we need to stop feeling guilty for being angry and black. And I say that because once I thought about this, I thought, well, wait a minute. Let me deal with this anger thing. And then I thought, the founding fathers of this country were what? They were angry at King George III. The Pilgrims were what? Angry at England for religious and economic oppression. So they sailed an ocean. The founding fathers created America with their anger. The Boston Tea Party, they were angry with England's taxation. All whites. And they threw what was gold of its day overboard into the Boston Harbor. And much of this led up to the Revolutionary War. And so I've come to believe that if anger was a good enough substrate for them to create America, to sail an ocean, to fight a war, surely it's a good enough substrate for black men to free themselves. So I say let your anger fuel your constructive fight for freedom. And I've sort of modified what Malcolm X said, and we must do this, and we must do it by any legal, collective, economic means possible. By any legal, collective, economic means possible. But we need that fuel. You need your anger. Never let anybody diminish your anger or allow you to feel guilty for it. If it's good enough for the Founding Fathers, the Pilgrims, and the Boston Tea Party, it's good enough for us.
Context of White Supremacy. Now, set this up a little bit. I feel like I've had some time to digest poem number 1, Dr. Nigger. Have you felt that way? I mean, the poem, "Can you cure me without touching me with your nigger hands?" Have you felt that way as a surgeon and interacting with, white colleagues, white patients?
I wouldn't. Well, not when. Once I have someone in surgery, we've gone past all that because they wouldn't get on the table otherwise. But yeah, there have been patients, not that many, because I really try to make patients comfortable with whatever racial baggage they bring to the table, and not take it personally. There have been some. I remember when I first opened my office, and one of the things that I dare not do was to put my picture in the paper as I advertised my practice. And so my first patients came in. They opened the door. There was a white mother and her daughter. And they actually the mother clenched her daughter and was trying to find a way to get out of the appointment. And, I sensed that, and, it was easy to get angry at that. But, again, it's my job to make them feel comfortable with whatever racial baggage they bring to the table. And I was to examine the daughter. And I was about to ask the mother, does she want to come back to the exam room? And before I can get it out, absolutely, yes. And she's come charging back. But again, it was my responsibility to make them feel comfortable. Long story short, in doing that, they ended up being one of my best and long-term patients and sent many, many referrals. But again, it's a matter of making them feel comfortable. Now, it's not always that simple, because one of the things that you'll find is that some people will make an exception and say, you're not like, they won't come out and say that, and in essence, you're not like the rest of the niggas. You're one of the special ones. So it's okay, and, they can go and to their parties and say, I do have a friend that's black, so I may not be racist. And I can remember one day I was seeing a Vietnamese elderly man, and I was examining him, and he said to me, why can't the rest of the blacks be like you? I said, what do you mean like me? Well, you're not angry, you speak reasonably well, you're a gentleman. Why can't blacks be like you? And I thought, how can I get to this guy? And so I asked him if I could just put my hand on his chest. And he agreed, and I said, when I ask you to stand up, just stand up, please. And he said, okay. And so as he tried to get up, I kept pushing just a little pressure, applied a little pressure, and he tried to get up, and I put more pressure, and he would try to get up. And now, meanwhile, I'm saying, well, come on, get up, get up, get up. And he's struggling. He's flailing all over in the chair, and he's getting angry. He got angry, and I stopped, and I said, now you have a sense of what it's like to be held down and held back. And even in this very simple exercise, and in this short amount of time, look how angry you were. Look how loud you got. After 200 plus years, give black people, give them a little break. And he understood. He understood.
Context of White Supremacy. If I may make a request, would it be possible to get collateral benefits at this point?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Actually, it was one of the ones I was going to read. I had put it aside, but it was one of the ones I was going to read.
Right. Yeah, right.
Okay. This one is collateral benefits. There are white folks who boldly stand knee-deep in Negro killing fields, discriminating, plundering, taking, denying, segregating, killing. And there are white folks who stand self-righteously on the sidelines of those killing fields, quietly doing, saying nothing to stay the killing, whilst reaping the social and economic collateral benefits of ethnic genocide by bolder white folks stacking black souls knee-deep in Negro killing fields. And I think this is important because I think you're just as wrong standing silently on the sideline, doing nothing to stop any form of racism, while at the same time knowingly benefiting from it.
Wow. Now that is important. There are a lot of white people and non-white people who would say that the white people who are not slave owners, the white people who, didn't have anything to do with so-called apartheid, these white people are not racist. You can't blame them. They're not culpable. At least from what I heard, collateral benefits would suggest that you don't agree with that.
Anytime any man, white, black, blue, green, stands on the sideline and watch any other man, black, blue, green, and do nothing, you're culpable. While spouting Christian values, you're culpable. While benefiting knowingly, you're culpable.
Knowingly? You think white people are aware that, hey, we are getting a lot of benefits from non-white people being this?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Yes, absolutely.
Wow. And you said white people have... Oh, sorry. Go ahead, Justice.
Can you please... I didn't really understand what you said. Can you please explain that to me where I can understand, please?
I'm sorry. What part did you not understand?
When about a not knowingly, or when Gus said that.
Yes. There may be some whites, many whites, or a group of people who actively exploit another group for social and economic gains. Either they're going to get enriched by it, or they have greater standings by it. And they are the people who are actively doing it, or actively putting chains on you, actively tying you down, actively refusing your life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And then there are people who claim to not be the ones who are doing it, but they are not stopping the ones who they say are doing it. And yet, at the same time, they are benefiting from those who are holding back other people. They are benefiting from that holding back, or that discrimination. And they know they're benefiting. If anyone was to say that racism doesn't exist today, I just totally out of touch.
Okay, you can go ahead, Gus, now.
Context of White Supremacy. This is a tough crowd. Some of the folks who've been listening in, and I had more than one person, so I'm going to go ahead and pitch this out. When you were sharing earlier, you said you work to make your patients comfortable. That's part of your job as a physician.
Mm-hmm.
And if it's a white person, I think you said it was a white patient, and she seemed to have some apprehension around you, perhaps because you are a black male. And the people listening, they said, wow, that sounds like a part of your job could entail making white people who are racist comfortable. And they just said, that sounds really, not fun, just really tough. What do you think about that? Do you feel that's what you're doing at times?
No, my job as a physician is to take care of people, well, with whatever racial baggage or ideas or thoughts that they have. The patient could have easily gotten up and walked out, and that would have been the end of it. But if they stay to tough it out, even for this moment, it's my job to make them feel comfortable. It's my job to cure and to heal, irrespective of what they bring to the table. Now, if they had to start, calling me nigger and things like that, then I would have asked them to leave with their racism.
Wow. Context of white supremacy. Justice, did you have some other questions you wanted to ask Dr. Hall?
Sure. How can your poetry change people's capacity to understand social and racial issues? And what do you mean when you say capacity?
I think capacity would mean the breadth of, well, let me back up and say that one of the things that I do with the book and when I write and the way I try to live is to be as direct as possible. And that was one of the reasons for naming the book Nigger for Life. You have to deal with it. It's there. It's in your face. You have to deal with it. You can't come around and say N-word for life or any of that kind of stuff. It's nigger for life. You can't get around it. So if you want to really have an honest discussion with me about these kinds of things, we have to talk, if you really want honest solutions about, or real solutions about racism and bridging the gap, then we have to have an honest dialogue about it. And so in order to do that, you must hear what the problem is from my perspective. And it's about as honest and as frank as I can say it without beating around the bush. And so if you do that, and that facilitates an honest dialogue and conversation, which allows both of us to reflect on what we are saying and to open up and hopefully accept and appreciate at least where we're coming from. I think that will increase our capacity, our word I'm looking for is our tolerance, our ability to tolerate and hopefully move towards accepting the other person for who they are and coming to realize that our differences are really a reflection of our strengths and that our differences should not be used as a way of dividing us. I always say that if our differences make us stronger, if you and I are different in the fact that you can turn on the water spigot, and I can turn it off, then you and I will never thirst. because we can always get the water because one can turn it on. And we will always have water because one will turn it off so we don't waste it and run out. We have to come to a point where we start to see that our differences are, in fact, our strength, and stop allowing people to utilize our differences to separate us and to exploit us.
I would like to ask you, how can you get around of white people calling you nigger?
How can I get around that?
Yeah, because you just you were just talking about it.
Yeah, let me tell you how I can get around it. One is that it's not what I think I am. It's what white America thinks I am. And so since they have all the powers, for the most part, their reality is to a large extent my inescapable reality with respect to what they think. And so knowing that helps me to never have a false sense of security in this country with respect to that. And I know where I have to move from. And I'm not moving from a false sense of security. The other thing is that I think that we can become over-emotionalized by the word nigger, and for good reasons. We have good historical and current reasons to be over-emotionalized by the word nigger. But to me, nigger is a distraction from the real fight. The real fight is collective economic might, which we must leverage into true freedoms not free in America. I am less concerned about what you call me or that you call me a nigger. We should be more concerned about being treated like a nigger. Calling me a nigger does not limit my life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. Treating me like one does. So this fight for stop calling me a nigger will only bring us a hollow victory. The real battle, the real victory is when we can bring our collective economics to a point where we can stop having America treat us like niggas. So it's in the treating, not in the calling.
Can you give me some suggestions on how to write a book for children?
Ooh, I'm not sure. Well, I think what one would do is find a subject that you really like for children, and as I said before, really just try to wait for the inspiration to come to you to write, as opposed to forcing yourself to write something, and then see what develops. But find out what you think children like to hear, and go with your inspiration.
How are you a warrior of the mind?
Well, I'm not sure I could tell you that. I think that was something that you would have to ask Cornell West. I stay in my head a lot thinking. I like to think about things. I think that's very important in terms of writing and trying to take an image or a flash of inspiration and then try to give words to that. And I think you have to stay in your head in order to be able to do that. But I think you probably would have to ask Cornell West why he said that.
Okay, go ahead, Gus.
The text of white supremacy the address. You can get more information on Dr. Neal Hall, surgeonpoet.com. If you click his name, if you're listening at Blog Talk Radio, it will take you right to his website. Pick up a copy of his book. It's fantastic. Matter of fact, could we get poem number 3? Is that possible, Dr. Hall?
Sure. The name of this one is called Speaking in Black. Some years back, a ophthalmology group, our eye care practice, was looking for an eye doctor, and I sent my resume in, sight unseen, and they called me back pretty much the next day and offered me the job over the phone. I knew where the area was. It was in an area called Bucks County in upstate Pennsylvania, just north of Philadelphia. I know there were not a lot of blacks in that area, but they responded, and they wanted me to come right up and see the doctors. The doctors were really ready to hire me, and I happened to tell them I was black. They told me that they would get right back with me, and I'm still waiting for that call some 20 years later. So I excuse me?
Oh, please continue, sir.
Okay, so I wrote this in response to that, and it's called Speaking in Black. Immersed in disbelief, he looked me in my eyes, surprised. He said, I did not speak in black when we spoke on white telephones. He said he had high hopes and opportunities, but when he looked me in my eyes, his eyes said, pull back, backtrack, double back, and take back. When he looked me in my eyes, his eyes said, not sounding black is not white enough to grant access to white hopes and opportunities. When all that he could see in me was black, he backtracked, double back, got back in line to toe the line, and took back high hopes and opportunities whites set aside for white.
Woo! Context of White Supremacy. Wow.
Can I just share another one real quick with you? Because
have at it, sir.
This one's dear to me. I always get this vote. You got to vote. You got to vote. And this is my response to that. I named this casting. The fathers of my father did not sacrifice nor die that I may gain the right to cast my vote for the lesser of two evils. The lesser of two evils is still evil. Yet the black man is indoctrinated with the lesser standard of casting his one vote for the lesser of two evils, as if the casting itself, under any circumstances, is more sacred than the right to not cast one's vote for any greater or lesser portion of evil. And I would just like people to think about that. Really, really think about it. It's you have a greater right to hold your vote as opposed to casting it for the lesser of two evils. To hold your vote for the right choice as opposed to casting for the lesser of two evils.
SurgeonPoet.com website for author and ophthalmological surgeon, Dr. Neal Hall. We have quite a few folks that dialed in. I wanted to actually go to the phones a little earlier in case folks wanted to respond or ask questions to some of the poems that we have heard already, and then that would leave a little bit of time to hear a couple more poems, and then we could hit the phone lines again, if that is acceptable with you, Dr. Hall.
Oh, I'm following your lead, sir.
Oh, right. Person that called in from a blocked number You have a hand up. Your line is open. Did you have a question for Dr. Hall?
Can I be heard?
Yes, ma'am.
Greetings to you, Gus, Justice, and to Dr. Hall.
Hello, ma'am.
Hello.
Hello, Justice. Nice to hear your voices. Dr. Hall, if I stand, correct me, please, because I was in and out and I did not get to hear the full conversation. When Gus was asking you about the system of white supremacy, racism, and his definition of it, did I hear correctly that you said you did not quite agree with his definition?
No, I didn't say that. What I said is that I think that there's a wrong that's greater than that, and that wrong is when it's man against man. I'm saying that I agree with him. Those are regional kinds of things, but in general, anytime any man exploits another man for socioeconomic advantages, that is wrong. And I say you can see it in Chinese people doing it to Chinese people. They're not white. You can even see it Africans doing it to Africans. They're not white. Irish Catholics doing it to Irish Protestants. So there is a greater wrong with respect to the fact that it's man against man.
I quite understand that there's a wrong against man being wrong, but when you are putting it in that perspective, where there are interracial conflicts, and especially if we want to speak on the African point of view, most of what we are doing to each other, it was done because of the system of white supremacy, which wanted to divide and conquer. I'm from Pennsylvania, so when you said Bucks County, Langhorne, I'm familiar with that area because I grew up in Pennsylvania. So I know about the racism. People always like to assume that whites up north, they're much better than whites in the south. They are much more covert with it up there. They're not going to come right out and tell it to your face, but their actions displayed more so than their actual words. So when we're saying that there's not a system, there is that system, and it was started by the white supremacy because they want to establish something specifically for themselves, which is why I'm quite in agreement with Gus's, Dr. Neal Fuller, and Dr. Francis Cress's Welsing's definition of what it is.
I understand exactly. I understand what you're saying, but there may be a Chinese in a certain province with, and we say that's, province X and province X supremacy. I understand what you're saying. What I come to embrace is that the basis for all this is not just the fact that they're white and we're black, but it's that it's about economics. We were not brought here just because we were black. We were brought here for economic reasons. We had a black distinguishing tag that could not be removed, and there were certain social stigmas that we can and stages that we could attribute to that color in order to hold that group down. For what reason? For economic reasons. Over time, there are some social. It's part of our society. That's the way we live, the South. But the primary reason was for economics. So this is much more about economics from my point of view. And so the solution to this, I believe, is black collective economics. We may not win white hearts and minds, and we should not try at this point. What we should do is our collective economics and common sense, our dollars and common sense, should be enough to change their behavior, racist, supremacist behavior against us. Because I believe that the capitalists, their God is capital. control their God.
Hang tight.
Excuse me?
I wasn't talking to you, sir. If you had more to say.
So I'm saying control their God, and you control their oppression of you. If you look back, and I was thinking about this, and I gave a presentation on this. If we look back at the Montgomery bus boycott, much that have come out of that, and it was in the religious revelry, we shall overcome, and we did. But why did we to a large extent? The major reason was the economic cost to white businesses when blacks stopped riding buses and patronizing downtown. When we look at the Greensboro, North Carolina Woolworth sit-in, and finally blacks were served at the counter, it wasn't because we won hearts and minds. It's because the guy had lost over $150,000 in business. At that time, that's a lot of money. And so that message has been lost in our struggle to free ourselves in America where freedom isn't free. There's a cost to be free. We must let our economics free us. And you'll see less overt white supremacy. It's about economics.
Wow.
It's not just about color. Color's the method.
Wow.
Economics is the means, or the outcome you're looking for. Color is the means, excuse me.
The person who dialed in last 4 digits, 5404, 5404. Did you have a question for Dr. Hall? (5404). Did you have a question for Dr. Hall? Alrighty. Person who called in last 4 digits, 3358. 3358. Did you have a question for Dr. Hall? 3358.
Well, more like an argument. Just to see what I've been observing. Excuse me, hotep everyone. To the guests as well.
Hello.
Now, the statement you just made is about economics. I would agree with that to a certain point. Well, if I'm not mistaken, when this fight for economics happened, a lot of backlash was brought against black people when they started to get their economics together. One town that I finally got recognized for the wrongful doing, I believe, is over there in Oklahoma.
That's right. Mm-hmm. The Black Wall Street.
Correct.
Mm-hmm.
We also had we had Black Wall Streets in other places, like I think it was in, you know what I'm saying? So
in Florida,
these towns were destroyed.
That's right.
So now, are you saying that now is the time to re-implement it and try it again, and or do we have to have a special way of implementing it, and maybe even having another way of protecting it as well?
Yeah, I think it was never a time we should have walked away from it. There was never a time we should have walked away from it. I was told that if you're walking in a direction and you do not feel the wind in your face, you need to turn around because you're heading in the wrong direction. So the mere fact that they destroyed these cities because of their economics should have been the first clue that we were walking in the right direction, and we should have never turned away from that. So what we need to understand, and much of this was lost in the religious overtones of our struggle. The economic part of it was dampened. But we need to understand that economics, as far as I'm concerned, plays a very important role, not necessarily in getting anyone to love you, but in large part getting them off your back if they want your economics. And so what we must understand is that it's a collective thing. Any one person alone is vulnerable. It must be black collective economics that's used not just for the sake of wealth, not just having wealth for the sake of wealth, but wealth for power, and not power just for the sake of power, but power to leverage freedoms in America that are not free. And really, for every man, the struggle of the black man is really the struggle of every man who's oppressed. We are the standard bearers. We know better than any other, at least in this country, next to the Native Americans. It is truly about our collective economics, bringing it to one point. And I have this saying, we either buy black or we buy from that which does right by black right now, not tomorrow, not next week, right now.
Context of White Supremacy. And folks on the phone line, y'all can hang tight
Gus?
1 second. I want to see if we can... Oh, go ahead, Justice, if you got a question.
Can I ask him that question?
Feel free. Any questions? Do you have a question? Or?
Okay. Have you had sex with a white person?
Excuse me? Sorry? Can you ask that again?
Have you ever had sex with a white person?
I don't think that's an appropriate question to ask. Whether I did or not, I really don't think that's an appropriate question to ask. So I refuse to answer that, whether I did or not.
Okay, thank you.
Would it be possible to get, I think we've had 3 poems, would it be possible to get poem number 4 for the evening?
Yes. Let me see here. This one doesn't have a title, but many of my poems don't necessarily have a title. So I'll just start out. I've been to the mountaintop where they had me when they asked me to ask not what my country could do for me, rather what I could do for my country whilst my country was doing me. I've been to the mountaintop, ain't nothing there but a straight drop, from the hilltops of New Hampshire to the Alleghenies of Pennsylvania, from the snow-capped Rockies to the slopes of California. There ain't no kings, no promised land, no embracing hands, ain't no freedom's ring, no we and we the people. My eyes can't see anything but dated niggas clinging to a nightmare posing as their dream. Can't free nobody if your mind ain't free to see. This song won't sing, our country 'tis of thee, sweet land of liberty, land where our fathers died. From every mountaintop, let freedom ring. I've been to that mountaintop. ain't nothing there but a straight drop.
Context of White Supremacy. It's taken me a while to digest some of the poems. If I can rewind to the poem, I forget the title, the one you authored about going to get the job and then find out, this is Speaking in Black. Speaking in Black. I have talked with quite a few non-white people, and they have a very similar experience where they have been to college, they have their degrees, they are skilled in communicating with white people, they have the whole business jargon or professional lingo down, and they can communicate with white people over, via internet, whether it's email correspondence or even over the phone, and things are A+. And then in person, it's, oh my gosh, we've made an error somewhere. Can you talk a bit more about that experience?
This is very interesting. In that there was a recent article in the, I think it was the New York Times about this as it related to blacks graduating from major universities in this country, Morehouse, Yale, Stanford, and getting out in the job market, and how difficult they found it was to get jobs. There were studies that show that job applicants with black-sounding names received 50% fewer callbacks from those with white-sounding names. And what we find that, or what the article went on to talk about, was that because our best and brightest, in terms of educated, from some of the better schools, are having such a hard time trying to break in, that what they're doing is they're break into getting jobs and things like that, their field of study, that they are decolorizing their resume. They're calming down the blackness in their resume. They're becoming ethnically neutral, and they're removing all racial markers in their resume. They're deleting memberships in African American student associations or activism in black organizations. Some of them are coming from historically black colleges and universities. They are actually leaving out their degrees from those universities while putting where they received their master degrees, which would be from a non-historical black college or university. They're removing whether they even majored in African American studies or whether they work for African American not-for-profit. They're rearranging their references so that the first people listed are not black or black-sounding. They're even avoiding putting their race on the job applications. Some have gone as far as to change their names to more white-sounding names. And this is only to get their foot into the door, to then be told, because they do not sound black, and they have decolorized their resume so they could get into the door, to then be told, once getting in the door, that the job has been taken, seeing the whole interview process completely fall apart within minutes of disclosing their color. Racism's real, very real. And to me, sometimes what we do is we feel, this person has gotten their education, they've got a college degree, they'll be okay. But those are the people we need to help the most, because they have the most skills to build the socio-economic infrastructures we need to help ourselves and to help those who are not fortunate enough to go to college. They can create jobs for every layer of our community, and every layer of our community can come to those socioeconomic infrastructures, and they can be hired or fired on their own merit, not their skin colors. So we need to pay more attention with getting people not into college and through college, but helping them once they come out on the other end to set up their economic infrastructures, and then holding them to the fire to be committed to those economic infrastructures and working with other economic infrastructures so that we have the fabric and framework for freedom in this country that is not free.
Again, Dr. Neal Hall, the website surgeonpoet.com. Wow. Before I hit the phone lines, other folks called in. They also had questions. Can we get another poem before we hit the phone line?
Sure. Let's see. This is probably my favorite poem. I was sitting down once thinking about slavery and things like that, and I began to think about the mothers of our mothers and what it must have been like for them in the days of slavery. And I thought about some of the things that they had to endure, and this is what came out of that. Excuse me. It's called Between Soiled Sheets. By the dawn's early light, the founding fathers of freedom and democracy found their way to rape the mothers of my mother. At twilight's last gleaming, there on the shores dimly seen through the mist of the deep, they raped our shackled black mothers between kneeling and praying to that white Jesus the white man sold them would come to save them from him. Raped our slave mothers between pleading and screaming, between screaming and weeping, between weeping and whimpering, between the soiled sheets of freedom and democracy. Raped one at a time, time after time, until the distant moon, reflecting in their detached, silent gazes, turned away to shed tears as founding fathers of liberty undressed the mothers of my mother, one at a time, time after time, between the soiled sheets of freedom and democracy. Between their rocket red glares and bombs bursting in air, there between the soiled sheets of freedom and democracy, the founding fathers of liberty raped our mothers until their defiant curly hair acquiesced and fell limp down across their undressed shoulders, raped until our slave mothers' black skin bred and bled laddered mulattoes cast by you to pave the road to our despair, our affliction with self-hate, our addiction to dependency and division, raped until our slave mothers' black skin bred and bled our identity in white things and white dreams. There, beneath that star-spangled banner yet waving, the founding fathers of liberty raped us of our mothers' dreams, our father's history, our human dignity, our method and means, our manhood, our selfhood, the legacy handed to legacies there between those soiled sheets of star-spangled freedom and democracy.
Context of White Supremacy. Dr. Neal Hall, author of Nigger for Life. Wow. Before I hit some of the other folks who dialed in, I feel like you've kind of shared similar thoughts as we've been discussing your book and your work this evening. But in a separate interview that you did at the Caribbean Book Blog, their address, caribbeanbookblog.wordpress.com. I'll read the exact little quote here and see if you can elaborate. You said, I once heard Andrew Young speak. Mr. Young answered in part, "Just think how much more I could have achieved in my life, with my life, had it not been for the obstacles embodied in racism in America. I find no great victory in achieving advanced educational white degrees in black skin institutions to limit me still." Wow, I just wanted to, I guess if I could pick out two things specifically, you referenced these degrees as educational white degrees. Can you elaborate on why you titled them in that manner?
Well, I think much of our education is misinformation, miseducation. There are some basic things some minimal things that we should pull out of the educational process. That's to learn to read, write, and math. And I think with those basic skills, you're obligated to go out and find the truth for yourself. So much of what we learned is not true, but we embrace that as our education, our foundation of knowledge. I mean, I truly believed at one time when I was a kid that George Washington never told a lie, that Abraham Lincoln freed the slave. I memorized the Gettysburg Address because I thought Lincoln truly was about freeing the slaves. Many of the slave imagery that at least I saw growing up in middle school and high school were happy little slaves, reasonably dressed, happy. Much of what we learn is misinformation and miseducation. And they are the tales and stories of the oppressor. And so our obligation is to develop enough academic prowess, reading, writing, arithmetic, to go out and find the truth for ourselves beyond this miseducation and misinformation that we've been giving. And much of it infuses us with a sense of self-hate, second-class citizenship. So that's what I feel is our greater obligation. It's degrees are tools, but that's not education. That's not our education, and should not be. Find the truth.
I want to make sure I give credit. Pen name David Goldberg. He is the author of How to Deal with White People. He's been a guest on the program twice. Good dude. I enjoy speaking with him.
I met him. He's a very good guy. Very good book.
Oh, okay. There you go. You can hit the archives and you can visit his website, dealwithwhites.com. He wanted us to share, he said, I think I said, it was the email that did not get sent. I'm a good little Negro. Is it possible for us to hear that one?
Would you happen to know where it is in the book? Let me, I think that was one of his favorites.
I don't have, he didn't send me the page number. I'll see if I can find it.
Let me see here. I didn't pull that one out of the side, but. Okay, I have it. Yes, it's not titled, but I have it. It says, I'm a good little Negro if I lay down and let them put chains on me. But I'm a threatening nigger if I stand up and fight to be free.
Wow. Have you felt like the former, the good little Negro?
No, and if I never. I may have been the naive little Negro, but I never felt like, it's just not in my nature to be the good little Negro. But I definitely was the naive little Negro.
Groovy. Other folks have called in. I want to make sure I give them an opportunity to dial in. And again, thanks to pen name David Goldberg, website dealwithwhites.com. Non-Mighty Wick, your line is open. If you have a question, go right ahead, sir.
Hello, thank you for coming on today's program, Dr. Hall. Can I be heard?
Yes, I can hear you.
Yes, sir.
Okay, great.
Thank you.
It's been a real pleasure to hear your experiences, particularly your personal experiences dealing with the medical profession. I want to ask, may you share what your sexual orientation is, and have you seen in the medical profession, particularly with black males, if treatment tends to be better or worse depending on one's sexual orientation? Thank you.
Are you still there? Hello?
Yes, sir.
Are you still there?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Can you hear me?
Yes. What do you mean sexual orientation? I need to be clear on that. I mean,
sure. I just simply mean if you, or when I say sexual orientation, I mean if heterosexual or homosexual
I see. Yes, hetero, and obviously any difference that, again, people can pick up, whether it's the color of the skin, whether it's, a dot on the left ear instead of when everybody has one on the right ear. People are going to use that to feel fear or to create a distinction that gives them a social, economic advantage. So yes, you see those kinds of things across the board. I mean, you see that. I mean, there's racism, there's sexism, on all the other isms. But the one common thing that they all have, and one thing they have in common is that it's trying to find a distinction, an exploitable distinction that will give me a leg up.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Let's see. The male who dialed in from a blocked number, your line is open, sir. If you have a question, please go right ahead.
Yes, greetings and good evening to everyone. I would like to first ask the guest, what is your definition of the term nigger? The second question that I have is, do you look at yourself and feel like an invisible man when being around white people? If so, do you think this is connected with the term nigger? The third question I have is, from your perspective as a physician, have you found or noticed any physical differences between white and black people that stand out? Let me see.
Well, with respect to the latter, let me say that one of the things that I'm really against is trying to find distinctions as opposed to looking at our differences as our strengths. So that's not where my mindset is. That's inconsistent with everything I said today, and so I don't look at that. We all have things in common, and we all have things that are different, and they're for a reason, and we should try to see our differences as our collective strengths. With respect to the definition of nigger, I don't really care. I don't care. What I care is being treated like one. Okay, so I don't care about a definition of nigger. I care about being treated like one, because that's what limits my life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness. And I think, again, to the extent that we, and I almost have to be cautious here, is that we stop being so emotional about the word nigger when we have good reasons to be historical and current. But from my perspective, that is a distraction from the real fight, collective economics. So if I really want to slow your progress, and I get you all riled up and distracted with, oh, you're calling me nigger, as opposed to working together to create economic empowerment, hell, I'll call you nigger all day to stop you from moving towards the ladder. So we have to break that and move away from it. And think, every time they call you nigger, think $1. I got to go collective economics. So if I'm going to come up with a definition, that'll be my definition for nigger now, collective economics. So keep calling me nigger so you can keep reminding me that it's about collective economics. And then you'll stop calling me nigger when I stop buying your goods and services, or at least to my face. And you'll stop treating me like one when I stop buying your goods and services.
Can I point something out? When I talk about differences, in my opinion, I don't think people should be judged from a one-size-fit-all approach, as if everybody has the same physical makeup. And I just have okay. Do you look at yourself as a walking contradiction? And what do you think about interracial relationships and same-sex relationships?
I believe all men are equal. That's me. I believe I'm sort of a hybrid of King and Malcolm X. I believe all men are equal. I think I must be careful, lest I become the oppressor myself. I must not be what they are. And I'm not going to pass that kind of judgment on people. If that's what they want, and that's what works for them, then that's fine. But we can't complain on one hand of being held back and held down for X reason, and then turn and do the same ourselves. Then we're standing on the sidelines of the killing fields ourselves. We're no better. We must become King and Malcolm together by any legal, collective economic means. And we must remember that we may be different, we have our differences, but, whatever your belief in God or spirits, we're all from that same flow. We may not all behave well, but we're all from that flow. We may not treat each other equally, but we're all from that equal flow. We may not appreciate the fact that we are from that flow. We may not, or our fears may not allow us to understand that if we work together in harmony, we wouldn't need this or have this need to hoard everything because of our fears of being without.
There are some people that emailed questions and comments in. I got one, Ross43, listener in the United Kingdom. Get that Skype account. You can call in, ask your own questions, and I can dial there now. So, shoot me a landline number. I can dial you for the program. Let me know, Ross43. His question is, well, you already said the definition of the term nigger doesn't matter to you. He was going to ask for a definition. And his next question is, do you think that your use of the term nigger is indirectly supporting racism, white supremacy, by using the white man's definition and using this word? He says he totally disagrees with the use of this term because words have power and associations. Thank you for being on the program.
Yes, to him I would say I wish he would have just as much disdain for being treated as a nigger as we claim to have for being called one. Calling does not limit my pursuit of life, liberty, and happiness. Being treated like one does. Fighting not to be called a nigger, at least to your face, is a hollow victory. It's a hollow victory. And we're over-emotionalized for good reasons by that. That distracts us from the real fight. I know what I am. What you call me does not change that. What you call me does not change that. What you do to me does not change that, but it will limit my ability to expand myself, my life, my liberty, and my happiness. Stop focusing on what you're called. Focus on how you're treated. It's a distraction.
We had another person, they wrote in, they wanted to know what you mean, Dr. Hall, when you use the term economics. What do you mean when you say economics?
Economics, what I mean by that is the medium of exchange of power is money. The medium of exchange of power in the world, it's money. So, in a sense, what I'm saying is, when I say economics, I mean power. What we do with that power, what we do responsibly with that power, is the next step. But economics translates into power. And that's why, if you look, we've been given a little bit of voting rights, and we get to vote for the lesser of two evils. We've been given some educational might, and that's been watered down somewhat by the color of our skin. We've been given some civil rights. I don't know why, when all men are created equal. But what is the one thing we've just been held back from as a people? And that's economics. Just like the gentleman mentioned previously, the Black Wall Street in Oklahoma and other towns. across this country and the past. It's power. And it's power to do the right thing.
The gentleman that called in.
If I can just add one thing. We used to have a saying is, what do they call a black man with no money? And it would be a nigger. And it goes on to say, what do you call a black man with money? And they go on to say, you still call him a nigger, but you call him more often to participate in this illusion we call the American dream. It's not what they call, it's when you're called to the table, when you're allowed at the table. You're only allowed at the table when you have power or economics, which is something they want, because it is the medium of exchange of power. We all wake up to go get some power. We all wake up, take a shower, brush our teeth, put on our clothes, suits, whatever, leave the house to get some power. Don't hold our freedom to a lesser standard.
The gentleman that called in 5404, your line is open if you have a question. I did want to say really quick though, if a lot of people have dialed in, if you have a question, you should press 1. And we have about 10 minutes left in the live stream, so if you want to call in to continue listening, you should probably dial now. The number is 347-215-6071. 5404, your line is open. Right ahead, sir.
Dr. Hall, I just wanted to say that I've heard that money doesn't trump white people. White people trump money. All around the globe, white people are setting the value of currency and telling people what they can and cannot buy with that currency. I want to know if you think that's accurate, and if so, if that is accurate, how will money help us?
Try doing it without it. Whether they said it or not, try doing without it. It's the medium of exchange. Try doing it without it. When there's never, to my knowledge, and please somebody correct me out there, there's never been a black man that's gotten to a plane and bombed any part of the United States that I know of. When Japan bombed Pearl Harbor, when Japan became an economic powerhouse, the power brokers in New York City were eating sushi, learning Japanese, doing karaoke, because they wanted parts of that power. So I say, try doing without it. Try to gain without it.
The person who dialed in, last 4 digits, 1288, 1288. Did you have a question for Dr. Hall?
Yes. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
I first of all want to thank you, Gus, for the programming, and shout out to young Sister Justice. But Dr. Hall, as I sit listening to you, I have a few things that are running through my mind.
Yes, sir.
Your comment, for instance, referencing Buck County and the level of your education and your level of knowledge didn't appear to make much difference to the people in Buck County that didn't return the phone call to you. And I hear you, I understand you don't agree with Gus's definition concerning what racism, white supremacy is. I spent a number of years fighting against that definition also. And I wonder if you're going to do what I've done. I've since come to realize that Gus's understanding of racism, white supremacy, predicated much on what Dr. Francis Cress-Wellesley and Mr. Fuller have said. And by the way, have you ever read Mr. Fuller's United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept? Have you ever read it?
No, I have not.
Okay. I would recommend that you take a look at that, because your use of the word economics on this particular interview, for those who have read that, and I happen to think that you're a wonderful young man in terms of your struggle, your willingness to struggle. But I do believe that we can all learn. I believe that you might agree with that. And I have a feeling that if you were to take a look at what Mr. Fuller has done, you may come away with that even stronger than you are now. And I feel that you're quite strong.
Come away with an economic concept, you mean?
Yeah. I think you want to take a look
construct.
At, just take a look at the way he addresses economics and his writing. And, you blend that with what you're saying, I think you're going to be in a phenomenal position. But other than that, I've always been listening. Gus, I appreciate you taking my call, and I'll sit back and continue to listen, Dr. Hall.
I just have a quick question for you. You said something about Bucks County. I didn't understand what you were saying.
Well, what I was saying is I hear a lot of people make the comment that education trumps racism. I happen not to agree with that.
Oh, I don't either. I'm with
your level of with your level of education, some of the people up in Buck County who could have benefited from your service as a physician, they let race trump your ability to come in and maybe treat and care for their children and for their aged residents. So in that sense, racism trumped education.
Yes, I agree.
I didn't have a question. I just wanted to make a comment. Thank you, Gus, for taking my call.
All good. Thank you for dialing in, sir. Appreciate it. All righty. Before we get... Oh, somebody else. A person who just dialed in from a block number with a hand up. Your line is open. Did you have a question for Dr. Hall?
No, thank you for being on the show, but I just wanted to be in the queue in case your line falls off.
Oh, hang on. Okay. I dig it. Before we get ready to close things out, I wanted to double check with Justice. Did you have any final questions for Dr. Hall?
Why can't you help but bear your intelligence, wit, and dreams?
Well, I don't want to, I share my heart. I share what I know, what I think I know. And I'm a feeling person, so I feel not only my pain for the restrictions placed on me, those restrictions that are related to the color of my skin. And so I feel that, and I have to express that, and I have to express that through the reading, writing that was taught to me. So that's my form of intellect, and hopefully my ability to rationally think. Some may argue against that, but that I have to bring all that to bear when I respond to the pain that I feel as a result of what we do to each other. And again, I'm not trying to put myself out there as being an angel, but in general, what man does to man, it's awfully painful. It is for me, and I'm able to at least vent somewhat through writing. I hope I answered your question.
Why did you co-captain the Cornell Track and Field Team?
You're so cute, Justice. Well, there was two of us, and so we both decided that it was decided that we would have two captains for the team. So my other captain, his name's Jeff Osborne, he captained mostly the middle distance and distance runners, and then I was the captain. Well, we were both captains of the team, but I spent most of my time with the sprinters. because that's what I did. I was a sprinter.
What constructive information have you shared with Gus, myself, and the listeners?
Well, I hope I, at a minimum, shared the fact that, I deeply believe that we're all one. We're all from the same flow, and I, at least, must be careful to always be in touch with that, lest I run the risk of becoming the oppressor myself. And that much of how I think and feel is sort of a hybrid of two individuals that I respect very much, and that's Martin Luther King and Malcolm X.
I don't have any more questions that I have for the guests. Thank you.
Thank you, Justice.
The person who dialed in, I had some last-second calls. The person who dialed in, 9606, your line is open. Did you have a question for Dr. Hall?
Yes, thank you for taking my call, Gus, and hello to Justice.
Hello.
And I also want to thank the guest, Dr. Hall, for coming onto the show. I just have
thank you.
Possibly, yes, sir. Two questions. You made a statement. You said you control, if you control their God, and you control their oppression of you. I think what I'm hearing is that you believe that the God of racists is money. Am I correct?
No, I'm saying their God is money. Racism is one of the mechanisms by which they maximize their God, which is money. So sexism is another mechanism. Communist versus the democracy in China, however they divide it up there. It's the distinction that you place between things that is the mechanism in order to maximize the economics, which is power, which is the God. It's not racism. Racism is is the tool by which you do that. Now, some people can lose their minds. I mean, when in the South you had the landowners who really understood that this was all about economics, but they had poor whites. They didn't want them to really understand it was all about economics. So what they had them believe was, oh, you are better. You are supreme being over these folks. And so that was enough for them to be happy while the landowners were going to the bank off of both our backs.
I've had one more question.
Hang on one second, sir. I wanted to check with Dr. Hall. We're at the 2-hour mark. If you have other things to do, we understand.
No, I'm fine. Thank you very much for your patience.
No worries. We're enjoying the conversation. The gentleman, 9606, there are two other folks who called in with questions. So, yeah, if you said you got one other, go ahead. Sorry, go ahead.
Okay, I'll just make it real quick. Dr. Hall, do you believe racism and white supremacy are synonymous?
Not necessarily. I think racism, again, as a mechanism, white supremacy may be a way of perpetuating the racism, the distinction.
Person who dialed in, last four digits, 106. 1073. Did you have a question for Dr. Hall?
Yes, I wanted to make this real brief. Earlier, sir, you was talking about history and it's true, no man on the history of this earth has ever been perfect, but if you compare our civilizations and some of the indigenous civilizations, I mean, at one time, Europe wasn't nothing but savage and barbaric and resource-starved. So we wasn't perfect, but we was, to me, on another level. I research history, and I don't see these people changing. This man's they a parasite by nature, so I don't see us getting together with them. But, it don't bother me because I accept who they are. But thank you very much.
Okay. Yeah, the only thing I have to say to that is, again, none of us are perfect, but for me, again, I always have to be careful lest I run the risk of becoming the oppressor myself. And we're not trying to get anybody to love us. All we're trying to do with dollars and common sense change behaviors. And it's been done. So it's been done. If you look, Montgomery bus boycott, Greensboro, North Carolina, we have, and I remember there was one time when Coca-Cola had terrible hiring practices for blacks, and we were told to stop drinking Coke, and things changed. It's not perfect, but show me something else other than guns, and that would be absolutely foolish on our parts.
Person who dialed in from a blocked number with a hand up. Did you have a question for Dr. Hall?
Yes, it's me again. I would like to ask him, what do you mean when you say that all people are created equal? Because men and women are not created equal. Black and white people are not created equal. So what do you mean by that? And
what do you mean? What do you mean that they're not created equal? And how are you defining equal? I'm saying equal if everyone has a right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Everybody has that right. And there is our common equality. And you, just for the sake of this conversation, do not have the right to diminish my life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness just for your own. And that's why I kind of changed it, and I put life, liberty, and the harmonious pursuit of happiness. Because by adding harmonious, then it means that in order for you to have your happiness, your harmonious happiness, it has to be in harmony with everybody else. Now, I'm not saying they believed it when they wrote it, but there's still power in those words. And we can be the ones who deliver on that. We can be the ones who deliver on that, not only just for black people, but for all people. Hello?
Are you? Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Did I interrupt your answer?
Oh, no, I was finished.
Oh, okay. Groovy. I believe, unless I missed a call, 3358. I feel like I saw that number before. 3358. Did you get your question in?
Yes, I had another one. I was trying to play devil's advocate.
Don't do that.
I'm interested in your answer because now we know that they're not harmonious.
But they haven't
they've proven that over the years.
Yeah, they haven't cornered.
They've proven.
Go ahead.
They haven't proven in the 200 years or 300 years of this country that they cannot be harmonious. They have not proven it on the continent of Africa, and they have not proven it on both continents of this Western Hemisphere as well. Australia, not at all. So when we do stop cooperating together, what infrastructure should we have in place to protect ourselves if we don't have guns?
I never said stop cooperating. What I said is that use your economics as a means of having some power at the table so that you can facilitate cooperation. And I never would advocate guns and violence in this respect by any legal, collective, economic means. That's it. Lest we become the oppressor ourselves.
Context of White Supremacy. The website, again, is surgeonpoet.com. Again, surgeonpoet.com. The book, Nigger for Life, author Dr. Neal Hall. We thoroughly enjoyed the conversation, Dr. Hall. I hope folks will visit the website and pick up a copy of the book. We will definitely be in touch with you, and just want to offer super duper thanks for spending some of your time with us this Monday evening.
Good. Can I take you out with one?
Please do.
Okay. I always like to end with this. It's actually my favorite one to end. It sort of ends on an up note. The name of this is Eyes Free. Eyes not Lizzie no more, a slave's name from slave owners. Eyes free, eyes a new me. Got's no more time to give masses cotton fields. Eyes free. Got's my own fields of dreams to tend to. Eyes not Lizzie no more. Eyes flying. Got's my own sets of wings. Eyes free. Massa can't put no more claims and chains on me. Got's my own comings and goings, my don'ts and doings. Eyes free. Eyes a new me. No more time to give masses killing fields. Eyes free. Got my own field of dreams to tend to. Eyes not Lizzie. Eyes not Lizzie no more. That slave name from slave owners. Eyes free. Eyes name free. Thank you very much for having me. I enjoyed it.
The pleasure was ours, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I actually have one more question, if that's okay with the guest.
Yes, ma'am.
How do you use money to stop racism, white supremacy?
Because you have to understand that the underlying root of that is money. Those are the methods by which you create and perpetuate the distinction between, the exploitable distinction between men that gives you the social and economic money upper hand and advantage. So you fight it with money. Ask Oprah.
Are you satisfied, Justice?
Yep.
There we go. Dr. Neal Hall, thank you very much, sir. We will be in touch soon.
Okay, thank you very much. I really appreciate it. And thank you to your audience. I really enjoyed their questions. And be well.
I'm glad, sir. We will be in touch soon. Take excellent care. And again, surgeonpoet.com. drpoet.com. Dr. Neal Hall. Have a fantastic evening, sir.
Okay, you too. Bye-bye.
Yes, sir. Context of White Supremacy, commercial break. Be right back.
Is racism hurting you? On issues of race, are you unable to speak, think, and act with clarity and confidence? Are you tired of laughing when nothing is funny, smiling when you are not happy, agreeing when you really disagree? At counterracism.com, you can learn specific strategies and techniques to counter the behaviors of the people who practice racism in all areas of activity, using words correctly, following counter-racist logic, even counter-racist science projects designed to reveal what racism is, how it works, and how to counter it. The open source code writing format allows you to pick and choose from a variety of counter-racist suggestions so you can produce the code that works for you. Stop by counterracism.com today and help replace racism with justice.
That's counter-racism.com.
You moved to LA, and what should be done with black folks?
Okay, black people,
for them, with them, about them.
It's very simple. Very simple. They need to learn how to get power and freedom. I'll say it again. They need to learn how to get power and freedom. And there is one way, and from as far as I'm concerned, only one way to get it. And that is through money. M-O-N-E-Y, period. That is the only way.
Okay, so how do you get
freedom?
How do you get
power.
this money? Oh, wait a minute. Power. What do you mean when you say power? Let's get that clear.
Okay, power to do what you want to do, and the freedom to do what you want to do. This has nothing to do with being gay, but let me just explain something to you. When I graduated from college, I worked for a record company for about 6 years. And in working for the record company, I learned a lot. It was a dream come true. I wasn't necessarily doing what I wanted to do. I worked in pretty much A&R, but for those 6 years, it was great. I made pretty good money, and I was subsequently fired from the position. And of course, it was to me at that time, it was the end of my world. I was like, I can't believe this has happened to me, but it was a blessing in disguise. I'd made a connection with an executive who was working with the company that I was fired from, and the executive was what you would call a big wig with Sony BMG. And he actually brokered a deal for me that paid me $2 million for about 12 songs that I'd written and recorded when I was about 18. So I sold all my publishing, and I'm sitting in the boardroom with all of these people. I had signed contracts. I signed a contract, my full name, in 87 different places. And it was just overwhelming and surreal. All I could think about was what I was going to buy. That's all I could think about. And this executive was in the room with, I think, his boss when the biggest wig of them both pushed the check over to me and told me, this is what he told me. This is a white man. Both of these men were white. He told me, he who has the gold makes the rules. Here is your first bar of gold. And he smiled. I told my grandpa about it. And he said, well, you have to understand that you are now part of, I think, back then, I think my grandfather said the 1 or 2% of America, because I think only 1 or 2% of Americans are so-called rich or millionaires. So 2% of the population has control of 98% of the money and economics that happen and all of the goings-on in this country. All I could think about was what I was going to buy, and I went to Tiffany and Company and bought me some, I think $5,000 or $6,000 earrings, and I went and I bought, a Louis Vuitton messenger bag. I mean, you couldn't tell me anything until I got another offer from the same company. That's how I got here to Atlanta. So now, after the first $2 million, here comes $4 million more for like a 3-year deal as a ghostwriter. I'm thinking this cannot be real. This cannot be real. Move to Atlanta. I get here, and I'm dumbfounded because I'm seeing black people driving Bentleys. I'm seeing a black woman in a Rolls Royce at Walmart, and I'm. It's just like I was in another world. However, I'm very, I knew that Atlanta was a supposed gay mecca, but I was not in for what I saw when I got here. Gay black people, straight black people, together, meshed together, and there are no issues. I couldn't understand why. I could not understand why there were people who were heterosexual, who were nicer to me, who were black heterosexuals than, those people who were gay that I foolishly assumed would be my friends because, we had that gay thing in common. Not to say that all gay people were mean to me, but just a few were questionable. But I just automatically assumed that there was going to be this huge separation in the gay blacks and the straight blacks. But what I found out from, I would probably say 10 people told me, that doesn't matter here. People in Atlanta are worried about their coins. White people in Atlanta and in L.A. and in New York aren't really concerned about who's white and who's black. Not saying that there's not any racism, because there is. But they're concerned about their money. There is no, in Atlanta, in the circles that I hang in and the wine tasting parties or whatever I go to, or album listening parties that I go to, there is no, oh my God, he's gay. Well, let's run the other way. And I finally realized what a very famous rapper has realized, which is Jay-Z, that, truly, when you listen to this saying, I guess, he who has the gold makes the rules. My contract is finished with Sony. I ended my contract about 12 months ago in December, for which, with the gold that I had made, I started my own company. And I've made hundreds of thousands of dollars last year from doing that. So now, I don't answer to anyone but myself. I don't think black people really understand that economics and money will solve a lot. When you get to that higher echelon of money that you make, a lot of BS falls to the wayside. That is the point I'm making about black people being so consumed and concerned about something that will never serve them, ever. Ever.
Context of White Supremacy Gus T Renegade and Justice, the sound clip from one of our previous guests who contacted me today via Facebook. Proud gay black man. February the 4th, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. We will do part 2. Proud gay black man and his entourage, and apparently that was part of the deal. He said he has others, presumably black gay males, who listen to the program, so they will all stop by Friday, February 4th, 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. Should be interesting. He said we are the enemy. I'm going to go to the phone lines. The program tomorrow will be back. That would be Tuesday, January the 25th. It'll be the author of BET, D. Brad, and Me. He is a non-white male. Lots of interesting tidbits about his experience at BET. He said it's not gossip, but it's more of this is how the monstrosity BET works, from someone who used to be behind the scenes. So should be interesting. It'll be 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 p.m. Pacific. I'm going to open the phone lines up for people who called in with a hand up. But before I do, Justice, did you have any comments that you wanted to share? Anything yesterday's program with Dr. Welsing or anything today?
No, not at this time. But I think I have some things to do, so I'm gonna get off the line. And thank you for everybody that called in, and I really appreciate the show that was today. Justice.asap@yahoo.com. Again, justice.asap@yahoo.com. And blog address, justdojusticetoday.blogspot.com. Again, justdojusticetoday.blogspot.com.
Woo! Right on. Groovy. Always good to hear from Justice. I was actually going to I'll hush. Anyone, I guess I will say before I go to the phone lines, one thing that I do keep in mind anytime I'm talking to non-white people, sometimes I keep this in mind when referencing myself often, that, Gus is a victim. I am a little slow. I have been retarded by this system. I keep that in mind, even when I'm, talking to myself, referencing myself, and, why I have not done all the things that I should have, why I haven't, done more. I have been retarded. I would just say that is important to keep that in mind. Anytime you are conversing with another non-white person, I'll leave it at that. Keep that in the forefront of your thinking. That can be very helpful in talking to other non-white people.
Gus, are you there?
Yes, ma'am.
I didn't get to hear the show from the beginning. Did he say if he was affiliated with any religion?
I do not remember him mentioning anything about religion. Does anyone on the program remember him saying anything about a religious affiliation?
I got the impression that from him that we need to get away from him. But I was not sure about that.
Because he keeps saying about this nonviolent technique, and he's referencing Dr. King, and that violence is not going to get us anywhere. I'm not advocating that we go out here and we start slaughtering people, But I'm an advocate that if someone do something to you, that you do it right back to them. We don't sit around and hold hands and pray and do all of this foolishness that the movement did and to set us back.
He never told me any successful episodes of this nonviolence other than that Montgomery boycott. But again, when he tried to do it again in Memphis, he ended up dead. So nonviolence doesn't seem to be working too well.
No, it does not. You see, this is the one reason why they shut down the Panthers and all of these other groups, because they stress that you own the Deacons for Defense and all of these other groups, because they said, you know what, you hit one of us, we're going to hit you back. You kill one of us, we're going to take one of yours out. And this is the only message that these people, they understand. They understand it's a tit for tat. When you turn around and you're going to pray and you're going to say, we shall overcome, this gives these people more fire for them to keep on doing and keep doing what they have been doing. And that's why we have stayed in this condition that we have in for so long. Because this Christian nonsense have numbed us, inoculated us to the point where we cannot think without our pastors coming and telling us what we need to do.
Yeah, I'm I'm over here just, saying to myself, I'm just battling with the fact, am I less confused about racism, white supremacy than a degreed medical doctor? I'm really over here battling with that. I'm just saying, in the fact that he wrote a book called Nigger for Life, he has experienced racism, and to be quite honest, I mean, I think he's very confused about the global system of racism, white supremacy.
I agree, 100%. I feel the same way you do. Saying the same thing to myself. A lot of what he said in his poem seems conflicting with his stance on the system, and I thought Justice did a great job asking him questions. The last question she asked him, how does he use his money? He dodged the question, and then the last thing he said was, ask Oprah. As to say Oprah is using her money to fight white supremacy. So I think he was very confused. And, I agree.
And as if Oprah doesn't experience racism, because she has.
He's not the only doctor.
You're right. You are so right. And when he dodged the question that Justice asked, because I was about to fire off an email to ask that question about if he had sexual relationship with a white person, when Justice came back online and she asked him that question, and he shut it down.
That's an extremely inappropriate question.
Hello.
Right on, Justice.
I mean, we are talking about white, supremacy. He should be able to connect the dots to seeing how that question.
Hello, can I be heard?
Yes, come on in.
Yeah, it's interesting how he uses the terms misinformation and miseducation. That's why I asked him, does he think he's a walking contradiction? Because he's a very confused victim of racism, white supremacy. He has said a lot that is very contradictory.
Does someone have a TV or radio in the background? Because there's noise in the background.
It isn't me.
Hey, can I be heard?
Yeah, come on in, 909.
I just wanted to say that people make these arguments, and I think it's important for you to be able to basically follow the grammar and I think we have a problem with sustaining and maintaining arguments and countering arguments because we don't follow the grammar. So you have people making statements and nobody addresses the statements that they make. As far as making money, who makes the money? Does anybody know anything about money and who makes it? So when somebody comes on and say, people, we're worried about, because we're worried about, or when you make money, the more money you make, your problems will, fall to the wayside. I mean, that's a logical fallacy, but if you don't know that that's a logical fallacy, then you start spinning off into other things. So my question is, does anybody on the line have any understanding of money?
You talking about fiat currency?
Which is exactly what it is, because in this day of electronic currency, all someone needs to do, a programmer could write a program to put your account at zero, and it's disappear, gone.
909, were you referring to fiat currency or just wealth in general?
No, money.
But I guess then you would have to define money, because what most people today think of as money is fiat currency, the paper bills. But let's say, like, for example, the monetary system used in the U.S. is a fiat currency, which is backed by nothing, and it is, computer generated. However, in some of the other countries that have the oil, they are seeking to take power away from the U.S. European monetary structure by not backing a lot of their stuff in U.S. dollars, like their oil and stuff, and not pricing it in U.S. dollars. And I hear that China is attempting to move away from that and establish their own form of currency within the next 5 years. So, like, let's say if you had gold or silver and you had a lot of assets like that, that's actually money. White people don't make gold or silver. Like, that's a resource from the earth. So if you gain economic power through means like that, it would weaken their hold over you. Just be ready to go to war, because they will attack. But
or they'll just make your gold not useful. You won't be able to spend your gold. You'll have to use it through the black market or somewhere, but they will boycott your gold to keep you from being able to circulate it.
I don't see how them boycotting gold with paper would be as effective, though, being that it's a precious metal.
They would control the lanes. They control the sea lanes. See, they got a weapon machine. They can control your gold. If they don't want, like South Africa, if they don't want South Africa's gold to get out, it won't get out.
Do you think if South Africans took control of their own resources and use that to have their own weapons and fight back, that would be a possibility?
Well, let's just take a look at it.
If all the non-white people did that,
we'll just take a look at like the east coast of Africa when they went to war over there through the diamond trade. What did they do? They shut down the diamond trade, and they had to go through illegal means to be able to get the weaponry that they did. But they were playing both sides to kill each other. If they were to use that against them and kick them out, I mean, like what? Like Uganda did? Down there in what was that? South Africa, north of South Africa, Zambia? Not Zambia. Or was it Mumbai? Where they kicked out all the white people.
I'll say this.
Yeah,
I don't think we're going to...
And, what is it? Zimbabwe.
Yeah, well, has he been able to trade with anybody to be able to build his infrastructure, use his gold or his resources to be able to do business, is what I'm saying. If when you're prepared to do business within the countries within your own state, next door to you that's bordering you probably can get away with it. But if you're trying to use it to buy resources that you don't have, so that you can build resources, you're in a different you're in a different lane now. Different ball game. This is one of the reasons why the president of South Africa kept the white people in South Africa, because they would got ran up otherwise.
I'll say this. I think a lot of times you got to consider racism, white supremacy operates in all 9 areas of people activity. Right. I don't think we should act like it's so all-encompassing and all-pervasive that we can never do anything to count it and that no matter what we do, white people are going to win. We have to get out of that mentality. No, having economic power won't totally disable the system because it operates in all 9 areas of people activity, but you got to counter it in every area. So to say that, I don't know, sometimes I feel like we have the attitude of it's pointless because, well, even if we control a little bit, they can still do this. That's why you got to make the effort and counter back. But it's going to have to be the non-white collective of people, but you got to start somewhere.
Right, I understand.
I wanted to make a comment really quick. Hang on. I wanted to make a comment really quick. I think it was said that a non-white person kept white people in a particular area. My understanding of racism, white supremacy, that would be the equivalent of saying that some inmates got together and they are deciding to keep the guards in a particular area. Like, it just doesn't compute if there is a system of white supremacy. The logic just does not add up that a non-white person was keeping a group of white people in a certain area. If white supremacy exists, those white people could do whatever they want. They could make that non-white person leave. I wanted to say that before I get a response. I also wanted to share longtime listener and investor, Khadijah. She emailed in a comment. Her comment, as long as money is considered at the center of power within racism, white supremacy, and not a tentacle, an arm, a tool of the system of racism, white supremacy, non-white people, victims of racism, white supremacy, will remain very confused and eternal victims. White people do not need money. White people make the money, all money. They design it, choose the paper for it, color it, decide the value or devalue of it. In fact, they decided to call it money. End quote. And I will mute my line. If we could continue to keep the background noise down, that's great. You're doing a pretty good job right now. Just if we could continue that, I would be super appreciative.
This is 9606. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
Yeah.
Okay. With the topic of money, that goes along with what I was going to say as a definition. That money is a contrivance. It is a mutual agreement of what that group decides has intrinsic value, and that could be anything. And it doesn't necessarily have to be fiat currency. It could be everything from natural resources to human resources and everything in between. So, what we're dealing with is in the context of a system that we are oppressed in, and that's why I asked him the question: does he believe that the God of races is money? And I think that without getting into zeroistic behavior and admonishing the doctor, because we are all victims, I'd just like to say that words are very important, and we must stick with logic if we're ever going to counter this system effectively. And so I think that the first thing we must do is as Mr. Fuller says, time and time again, we must master words, and because the words are pretty much the glue that holds the system together, but also it also is the product of thought, and which translates into action. So if we're going to gain hold of thought, speech, and action in a way to masterfully counter the effects of racism, white supremacy, we always have to keep that in mind.
wanted to make one more comment, and I will be quiet for the remainder of the program. I'll even make my announcement now, so I won't have to say anything else. We'll be back tomorrow, Tuesday, January 25th. That will be at 9 p.m. Eastern, 8 p.m. Central, and 6 p.m. Pacific. Author of BET, D. Brad, and me. Looking forward to it. Hopefully it will be constructive. We're fundraising all month. Please invest. It would be super helpful. Link is right below the description for every program. And these programs are apparently leaking now, which is good. People are hearing them in other places. So if you're listening someplace out there, this program, The Context of White Supremacy, is at blogtalkradio.com. If you go there and do a site search for racism, you'll find the show easily. Or you can go to Google and just type in Gus T Renegade, and the show should pop up. With that said, the last comment I wanted to make, I'm not surprised. I think I had this conversation with Non-Mightywick a week ago. I expect non-white people to be very confused about racism. I am stunned when I meet a non-white person that is not confused about racism, white supremacy. It is, that is a moment to go to the journal. So it doesn't really surprise me to bump into a non-white person who is saying things that don't make sense, seem to contradict what I know about the system of racism, white supremacy. The thing that I found most profound, really more than anything else that was said, is just the fact that we have a black male educated at Harvard. It is tough to get, any, more elite than Harvard. Worldwide, like people say, this is just the best academic institution ever. To get a degree from Harvard, you're a doctor. That's it is Bill Cosby. And you still get to a point in your life with a Harvard degree, you are a surgeon, and you have to write a book titled Nigger for Life. That says more than anything I could possibly bring to the table about the implications of there being a system of white supremacy. And last I checked, doctors, physicians, he is an ophthalmological surgeon, right? I'm quite certain they make a lot more than any of the black people who are attempting counter-racism. He has a lot more money and still felt the need to write a book titled Nigger for Life with a poem titled Dr. Nigger. And I will see you all tomorrow. I'll be listening, though.
I just wanted to say, I think we've talked about this before, and non-white people who attained a certain amount of so-called success under the system of racism, white supremacy, end up having stock in it, and I think what they do is a psych job on themselves, and I don't have a terminology for what it is, but one of the symptoms of it is, I did it, everybody else can do it.
That's not only it. It just proves the point of Dr. Carter G. Woodson when he says that these Ivy League schools have destroyed more black brain cells than cheap whiskey. And it just proves, because we think that getting into these institutions and they accepted you, that that you are going to somewhere or the other, you're going to reach to the level that your white co-workers or your white classmates reached on. Once you reach that obstacle and they block you, then all of a sudden, you turn bitter, and then you start writing a book and calling yourself out your name.
Right.
I think Gus read. Can I be heard?
Yes, sir.
I think Gus. I think the name was Khadijah, and he read her email. I just wanted to say that she has some understanding, and I was happy to hear that email, because she understands what she's talking about. She's on point. I just wanted to say that.
This is 1288, and can I be heard?
Yes.
I wanted to make a comment referencing the doctor's perspective. It appeared to me that when a black man or woman, non-white, becomes relatively well off financially, they seem to forget that most of the people that are practicing racism against them in this country are not in the top 1 or 2%. These are laborers. These are people who are probably making less than $35,000 or $40,000 a year. Their benefit in this system is that they still get Class A credit, so to speak, even though they don't have the kind of money the doctor has. So if he's oblivious to that reality, his education hasn't really moved him in the direction that it needs to. And really, that's all I want to say about that.
Yeah, I would like to say that, I could care less what Ivy League school a black person may come out of. Malcolm X debated some of the best minds from Princeton and Harvard, and they couldn't handle him in a debate. So just because a black person has an MD, a PhD from Harvard or Princeton, that doesn't, under the system of racism and white supremacy, that doesn't mean anything. It's a piece of paper to me. But that doesn't mean that that there aren't any black people that are conscious of the system that comes out of the Ivy League schools.
Well, we as black people, that's what a lot of people look at. They look at status symbols, and having these pigskin hanging on the walls, it shows that you have a Yale, Harvard, Princeton, Cornell on it as your graduate degree. It gives you a status on a step up into the upper echelon, and that's why people place so much emphasis on it. I graduated from an Ivy League school. I really could care less about that piece of paper that I graduated from, and I don't place much of an emphasis on it. But the black bourgeoisie, that's what they believe in, that, okay, sending your children to these schools and getting you educated, not realizing the damage that you're doing to your children, because these schools are set up to get the best of the black, non-white, and to train them, in essence, to be white supremacists, to get you to think like a white supremacist. So when you get out of there, you're going to come back out to oppress your people. That's the whole idea of setting them up and getting you an admittance into their circles.
Maybe they do realize that, because they figure you're either with them or you're against them, and they'd rather be on the winning side than be poor, broken, destitute, and having their children have nothing. That's what I've come to realize, or what I believe that has happened. If the black elite is really trying to build or trying to rebel, the first thing I would think that they would do was take over the education of the black schools and make sure the so-called black schools stay black, and also demand a foothold in the sports arena, also demand a foothold everywhere, and use their money and their influence over the so-called children that they're coming out of these schools and attacking worldwide, because they have these educated people attacking worldwide. But I don't see them doing that, I guess, as much as I think I should.
Yeah, I would agree, sir. It seems as though when there's an accumulation of wealth with non-white, specifically black people, that there's also a disassociation from, the black community when they're higher educated and whatnot. That seems to be evident.
I mean, wasn't there an idea out there by the FOI, or not the FOI, but the Nation of Islam, that they were gonna that they wanted to make a deal for the state of South Carolina, and something like that. I've read that in a book somewhere. I'm real fuzzy on it right now, but it was some kind of deal that they wanted to do for the state for the state of South Carolina, and where they could set up their own power structure without white interference.
But you're still not getting the point. You are still in these United States of America. You anywhere within the border where your electricity, your water is at a computer terminal, they can shut it down just like that. Cut your water off, your water supply off, poison it. Do anything like that, poison the land. Spray chemicals, come in an aircraft and spray chemicals over you in the state. You're still within the border, so you're still subject to the mercy of this country. So it makes no sense that you want to get a select state and go and move into it. That's the way they could kill you off more rapidly. All the blacks are concentrated in one particular location.
I wanted to ask the caller that just said that, too. Do you think that the white people in South Carolina and even in North Carolina in that region would lay down and allow that to happen, allow the Nation of Islam to have their own territory in the state of South Carolina and not attempt any violence or warfare towards them, and just let them have power like that?
I don't have no idea what they would have done, but they were talking to the Ku Klux Klan about this. That was the I think I got that out of this book I read, Black Brothers Incorporated, where they were talking about the Nation of Islam's involvement with the black mafia, or vice versa.
What would be the purpose of them talking to the KKK when the KKK hates black people? Did the KKK have authority to give them land or something?
I'm not sure if it was a truce that they were trying to make between, because the whole thing is, I think was based on, if my memory serves me correct, was that they both wanted the same thing, separation. And the way to get it is, okay, we want the state of South Carolina, you have everything else, or something like that. At least that's the way it was clicking in my mind at the time when I was trying to understand it myself. Mm-hmm. But it was a while ago when I read that, and I don't know, for some reason it just popped up in my head when we were talking about these resources and how would you implement this utopia if we're gonna are we gonna march for it? Are we gonna fight for it? I mean, what kind of, once we got it, how are we going to keep it? And
I don't think you can have it
collective about it. If you go by like what Dr. Claude Anderson would say, it would work best if you were a collective and most likely lived in an area where you could control your own politicians and you have a voting block to be able to control your politicians if you're trying to get into the game of the politics. If you had the state of South Carolina, right, and you had, I don't know, like Michigan's got 11 delegates out of here, 11 electoral. If you can accumulate 11 electorals, then that's a lot of votes to control the president. You don't have to. You can say, okay, we're all independent here. So the Republicans can come to you, the Democrats can come to you. Whoever wants you to be on their side, money's going to flow in your direction.
But you're not getting the whole point. The American electoral...
No, I get it. I do. I get it. I get what you're saying. Trust me.
I was speaking about the American electoral system. We could vote in the millions. It's all done by the Electoral College. And the Electoral College is put there by head of industry.
Yeah.
The Commerce Department. Those are the people who are elected and put on those Electoral College because they're the ones who decide who the President of the United States will be. Because you could have all the popular... Al Gore got the popular vote, but he still didn't get into office. So you can vote and vote until the day is long, and you still not going to get what you think that you want to get. So they've given us this illusion that if you go out there in mass numbers and vote, that you're going to get something miraculous. It has not done anything for us.
Yeah, Neely Fuller. The entire political system in America is controlled by the white supremacists. So voting ain't gonna do it. It's a rigged game. That's what I think.
It is a rigged game.
The thing about that is that the doctor he had said something about voting, and I think he was correct on what he said about voting, but again he was confused about other things.
The analogies that the person made about South Africa, which was what Kwame Nkrumah had said, when in order for you to become independent, these African states, how can you ask to be